greatest teams of all time. You can go back.
2000s. Okay, sorry. Go ahead.
Can I set it up?
Yeah, no,
okay.
go ahead,
Greatest teams of all time can be debated for all time. It's hard enough to do that when you want to include somebody from the 1960s. Of course, there's always a debate about the black athlete. Were they available during that time? Should that count? There's always teams throughout college football that we can look and go, that's the best team ever. There are teams prior to 2000 that are part of that conversation. However, theathletic.com ranked the best college football teams since 2000. It doesn't take long to get to 2001. And, of course, that Miami team that had, 20 guys or so in the NFL draft. Then you have Joe Burrow and LSU, who came out of nowhere to dominate the way they did. Vince Young and UT at number 3. Let's just stop right there because, my God, could that be a conversation?
Yeah, and I don't want to be a spoiler, but I do have a bone to pick here. I think that 2005 USC is probably better than some of the national champions on here.
I was going to mention that, Greg.
These are the best national champions.
Number 13.
No, 2005 is USC is number 13.
Number 13.
Oh, are they on there?
No, they're on there. No.
Okay, cool.
I actually have a little letter. I was going to say that at the end. You could have lost like 2005 USC on what was just a once-in-a-lifetime player and still have been maybe 2, 3, or 4. But let's go over those top 3 first of all with the Hurricanes. And is this the last great team they had during that run from the early 80s until that time?
Yeah. I mean, and if you notice, they're on here again, and we'll talk about it in a second, as like the prequel to that one. But 2001 Miami, to me, before, usually I will read the list, how they have it from 25 to 1. But when they do these lists, and I respect Stuart an immense deal as a college football writer.
Stuart Mandel,
who wrote this, who created this list. I always go to the front and go, okay, don't try to make an argument for me that somebody was better than 2001 Miami. Because to me, there's not. There's absolutely not. I am very biased because I did see them play in person, and they were so amazing. But it's just when you go down the roster and the NFL Hall of Famers, All Pros, Pro Bowlers, and what could have been with Sean Taylor, all on that roster, 2000 Miami also included in that. But 2001 Miami was just a murderer's row. And the only player that you would go ho-hum about was their quarterback, Ken Dorsey, and he was a Heisman finalist.
Yep.
Probably shouldn't have been based on but it was quarterback. This is how they voted, and how it was. There were other guys on that roster who, rightfully could have maybe been there if you had a more open view of it. But that team was so ridiculously loaded and lethal and scary that, to me, the list should be the top 25 teams since 2000, other than 2001 Miami, because no one may ever top that, especially now, because if you try to work out the dollar value of that team today, it would be impossible for even Georgia to do it.
Well, they had the 26-24 win against Virginia Tech, and they beat Florida State 18-7. Those are the only teams that even got within their atmosphere during that entire season. Craig?
Yeah, well, I'm glad I was wrong about 05 USC. I scanned that list a couple times, and I just went right over them. So I'm glad that he did include teams that lost the national title, because I still think that, some of the runner-ups are still some of the better teams, top 25 teams we've seen in college, and that would certainly apply to that USC team. And if the result had been flipped, same thing for that Texas team. So with that out of the way, I'll try and be better. But 01 Miami is just the creme de la creme of college football teams. I think the closest we've seen to that are 2 and 3, as far as just the buzz, the hype, everything surrounding just sort of the aura of those teams. I mean, Miami has always been a school with swagger, but I mean, that 01 team was just so loaded to the gills with talent, and had some close calls, as you mentioned. But
by the way, I want to correct myself. I said Florida State 18-7. It was Boston College. Go ahead. Who they beat?
Had some close calls, as you mentioned, but was pretty damn nasty. So, yeah, I don't think any surprise that Miami 01 is on here.
Lily was falling 10 times a day, covered in bruises. She would run just straight into a pole, right? It was a disaster. She would fall down the stairs all the time. She just could not navigate her environment. 8 weeks after starting functional mushrooms, she was assessed developmental age for physical therapy and no longer required that service.
Thanks for joining us today. That's a wrap.
Peace, love, and mushrooms.
Peace, love, and mushrooms. Rashad, you got me.
Getumbo.com.
All right.
Used to be a conversation about 95 Nebraska. I get this is since 2000 about greatest teams of all time. And I don't really recall much of the others that were mentioned pre-2001 outside of 95 Nebraska, because I think that conversation was kind of theirs until 01 Miami, just in my opinion. But since then, I do think 19 LSU and 05 Texas have been about as close as you can get to kind of having that same feel, generating the same types of talent onto the next level and just being memorable. So yeah, 01 Miami is still that team. And I wonder how long they'll remain that team. Probably for a long time, but who knows in this era, what kind of super team can be built up.
Been basically a quarter of a century since it's been 23 or 4 years. What I look at though, and this is the only part where I go, wait a minute, and they outscored their opponents by whatever they wanted. They beat one team ranked in the top 10. And that was an overmodulated Nebraska team who had their brains beat in by Colorado 2 or 3 weeks before. They beat numbers 11, 14, 15, and 13. They beat number 4 Nebraska to win the national title, who should not have been in that game. That's the only thing I see. If there is a blemish, and that's not really a negative, it's not their fault who they played, but there was one team ranked inside the top 10 who they beat during that season where they dominated.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many teams on this list I'd love to see play each other because of the matchups and styles. And just taking in the top 5, 01 Miami and 05 Texas would be interesting because 01 Miami would have had the outside pass rush to maybe make Vince Young somewhat human. Like where you just can't, the pictures in my head of that national championship game of not just Brian Cushing, but other guys who wound up in the NFL and played long times on defense, just bouncing off of Vince Young.
Or not touching
him.
Yeah.
Miami, I would think that 01 Miami team had the size and speed in the front 7 to where that would have made him. And again, we saw it in the NFL. Like they had all those NFL guys all over the place. Like that maybe would have contained him a little bit, but of the most dominant, like Miami had the best like top to bottom roster, but on this list, Vince Young, as far as like college football players on this list, might have been the one I've seen play that was the most. Like, I don't know what you do. Like, how do you figure out how to stop him?
Well, USC just needed to figure out one more time, or just pick up a first down.
Well,
he was as good as I've ever seen when it comes to big moments in a game.
But they didn't stop him. They just was just a that was a there's a high scoring game, so that was just how okay, can we do more than they do? And it wasn't that case. So yeah, but there are teams throughout this list that I would love to see play each other, especially when we get down into the middle of it.
Craig, anything else on Miami 01 and Texas at 05, that Joe Burrow team? Somebody mentioned their defense. Garrett, was their defense? They didn't have to have a defense.
Their defense was good. You had a great secondary. You had Derek Stingley, who was a freshman, who I'll go back to that game against Oklahoma. Watching him against CeeDee Lamb was ridiculous. He completely shut down CeeDee Lamb. But their offense, you couldn't deal with those receivers. Now, unless you had a team like Miami there who could actually compete and shut them down, maybe. But that team ruined my fandom. It set the bar so high that I can't even enjoy watching LSU because they haven't been able to compare to that.
All right. You wanted, Craig, you jumped the gun a little bit on that, but I had a note about 13th ranked, and that's way too low. The 05 USC was a Vince Young scramble, right? 4th down and goal, basically no time left away from being, where would they be if they had won that game? At number 2?
No, probably number 3.
Yeah.
Where 05 Texas is. I think 19 LSU, the offense took all the headlines for the most part, but Garrett's right. They still had a good defense. Dave Aranda got out of town after that, and there was a lot of complaining about that defense. But I'll maintain there's these these people that have this idea, and there's very few teams that can accomplish this. They're probably mostly on this list of like, I want the 19 LSU offense and I want like the 01 Miami defense. And it's like, you just can't have that. Like it doesn't work. You can't just shut everybody out and score 60 points a game. It doesn't work that way. At some point, your offense is so good, they're scoring so much, your defense is going to be exhausted and on the field all the time. And I think that's what happened somewhat with LSU's defense. But yeah, I mean, 05 USC might even be at number 2. If you remember how hyped up that team was, they were as hyped up as any team I can remember ever. And Texas was hyped, but not to that degree that I think many people thought that they were going to beat that USC team. So, and I think we all expected a great game, and it turned out to be better than ever could have been imagined unless you were a USC fan because of the result. But yeah, I mean, 05 USC would probably be right there next to 04 USC in that top 5 somewhere.
Yeah, Texas's hype largely outside the state of Texas came after 05, right? Like inside the state of Texas, they were always, the 800-pound gorilla. But outside, it was always like, well, they're fine, but they hadn't won anything until then, right? In a very long time. USC, though, I think that especially coming off of 04 and then the years before where they just kind of put out Heisman Trophy winners, but coming off of 04 and then that team was just so amazing and Reggie Bush was all over the place. And the fact that they're in LA, and you had LA sports writers caring about college football for, 5 consecutive years. If you listen to Colin Cowherd back then,
I was going to say it's the same dude I think of. I mean, the tissue. I mean, the amount of money he must have spent that year, it must have been incredible.
Yeah, I mean, just exactly. On all of the USC. Pete Carroll's the best. You would just hear it all the time. And Texas and Mac Brown. For once in Texas history, they went into that game not being a team that everyone talked about like they were some sort of, gods. And
I actually think that no football team, and I know that this is not year in and year out, seems to thrive when they are not favored. Then against, even when they were mediocre at 7-5 a few times, or when in the wilderness, they seem to, whatever reason, the wins in their history of that program, when they are playing in a big game or they're just not supposed to win, they find a way to win.
And that was Mac Brown's thing, is that he brought some down-home folksiness to a place that is no longer that. So it was all that, but like the LA thing was, which Austin can't claim anymore, of like, oh, we're just little old, Austin, Texas. Well, that secret's out and been out for a long time. And it was probably even in 2005, but people didn't really think of it that way. But the LA intersection of that, where there are things in towns like LA and Miami they only care about when they're good.
Yep.
And college sports is very much that. In LA, it is in Miami as well. And so when you have an LA-based team like USC that's so good and it's got all these rock star players, and it's just the hype rolls a little bit more. And I remember thinking before, like, have you guys not seen, do you not watch all the Vince Young games? Like, this guy's going to be tough to stop for these guys. But even I thought USC was going to win that game. And then it was one of the greatest games that you'll ever see in your life.
2004 Auburn, underrated. Ronnie Brown, Cadillac Williams in the backfield. Had a strong defense. They should have played for the Natty. They did not get in. They were unbeaten and did not get a chance to play. That's back when it was the BCS, correct? It started like in 2000 or whatever, 2001. They, according to General Ursus, is a Tennessee fan, saying about, don't forget 04 Auburn. 04 Auburn on this list is 21. And again, this is something you could debate and discuss forever and ever.
Yeah, that's a good call. I mean, they didn't even get a chance to play for the title because of the system at the time. So, to be undefeated, and especially in the SEC, I mean, you hear how hard it is for a team to run through that entire league in the early 2000s. Just mightily impressive, and a victim of the situation they had, as far as the postseason at that time. So they had an expanded playoff, that might have been the team that went and won it all. I think they certainly proved that they were as deserving, if not more deserving, because Oklahoma laid an egg that year, and it made it all just look even worse than it already probably felt for Auburn fans. So, yeah, that's a good call on them. I mean, good call by Stewart to have them still on here. And that's why I was pointing out at the beginning when I didn't see USC, but now I can start to see some of the teams that didn't win the Natty. And 04 Auburn is right there near the top of the list of the what ifs as well, I think.
Hey, their last, 3 of their last 4 games, they beat number 8 Georgia, number 15 Tennessee, and number 9 Virginia Tech. Of course, that was the bowl game that they played, but 2 of their last 3 were ranked teams. What really I think probably ate them up, they beat Tennessee twice during the year, was that, and this is no fault of their own, the way the schedule fell for them. That was a down year for Bama. It was a down year for Ole Miss. They played Kentucky and Arkansas. And so the computer was just like, nope, don't like.
Yeah, the decimal points. By the way, as good as 2001 Miami was, of course, the next year they were 12-1, lost on a controversial play in the end zone, right, to Ohio State. Was that the Maurice Clarett Ohio State Buckeyes who beat them in the national championship?
What did you say,
game?
2000 Miami?
2002 Miami.
Yeah, 2002 Miami. Yeah, that was 2002. 2000 Miami was wide right 3 Miami that won, but lost to Washington earlier in the year, and the BCS computer somehow left them out. And that was good news for Florida State and great news for Oklahoma. But Miami probably should have, looking back, at least been in that game.
All right. Anything else on that? Garrett, you have anything else to say?
No, I mean, I was thinking about that 04 team with Auburn. I feel like they beat LSU, and LSU was number 1 that year as well. That team was really, really good.
When they beat them, they were number 5.
Okay.
But, yeah, they might have wound up number 1 at some point that year.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Paul mentioned the Bama being down and all that, but I'm looking, they beat number 5 LSU, number 10 Tennessee, number 8 Georgia, number 15 Tennessee. So there's 3 top 10 wins, 4 top 15 wins. Oklahoma beat number 5 Texas, number 20 Oklahoma State, and number 22 A&M. So, hey, thanks for giving my Sooners a chance there, even though they just messed themselves like they had the last 10 national title tries they've had. It's not quite 10, but it's close. It's close. But, yeah, that's still confusing kind of looking back on it, and you can see where that's still a sticker, a burr in the side of Auburn fans for sure.
Oklahoma 2000, the team that came out of completely nowhere with Bob Stoops. I think it was in his, second or third year. Josh Heupel was the quarterback. They had a great defense. Florida State, of course, in the championship game, but that was a team that came out of nowhere. Those are since 2000, ranking Stuart Mandel, theathletic.com, the best teams in college football.